Hey guys. Oh, something's came to my mind today, and it's a story I've just shared with Fritzy whilst I was on Skype. And today, whilst Rose took Esther to the hospital, and Esther's the lady we're providing palliative care for, and she's a very strong lady, and when she was, like, what I mean by that is mentally she's very strong. She hides from her children how sick she is. When she was walking to the taxi this morning, I could see she was grabbing onto things to try and keep herself up, and her children are so used to her saying I'm fine that they didn't help her, so we had to help her try and alert their children gently to the fact that their mother's not the strong woman she always has been at the moment. But I guess children never like to acknowledge, I suppose, that their parents are certainly dying or anything like that. But whilst they were at the hospital, the doctors could speak English and didn't know Rose could speak English. And it's since transpired that the ARV drugs that Esther was taking were making her so uncomfortable, making her whole body itchy when she took them. She was having an allergic reaction. Instead of saying anything, she has been taking the drugs from the hospital and not actually taking them herself. So for 8 months she hasn't took her ARVs. And she hasn't told anybody who's spoken to her, myself included, about that decision. And because of that, her body has developed into the AIDS stage, it would seem. Now, the doctors said she hasn't took them for 8 months. This woman's going to die. But Rosie understood what she said. And I'm in a strange place with it, because I'm trying to be strong for the children and for everyone else around me, and for Dominic, because Dominic's watching someone now on the land who is dying of the very same virus that he is infected with. And I'm trying to stay strong, but it's not easy. I've known Esther and her daughter Nema and her son Faraji for over 2 years now, and I've come to love them dearly. And it's, as with any situation, when someone's ill, it's heartbreaking when you can't do anything about it. But I want to explain something about the significance of this family and how important they are with the foundations of everything that you've witnessed happen here in Uchira, with Uchira Children's Fund and Featherstail Children's Village and the Children's Home and the Animal Rescue. And that is that God used the disabled child of Esther, Nema. He used her one day in a very miraculous way. And had she not listened to God that day and walked to where He told her to walk, she told her to walk, then none of what you see or have seen, or none of what I've lived would have happened. So there was a time here where there was a time here where I was exhausted. I had spent nearly a year in Uchira by myself. I hadn't connected with anybody in the local town, and I was worn out. I wasn't coping. And this is prior to me opening the Children's Fund Facebook page. This is when I was just here with my own savings and assisting who I could. And I was going home, and the plan was I'd go home to visit my family. And everything was so difficult that I began to say my goodbyes here. I began to say goodbye to people and they were saying, we need you to come back. And in my heart, I was thinking I can't, and I was thinking I'm not coming back. I was thinking to myself, I won't be returning, and I will be leaving for good. And at that time, Esther and her disabled daughter Nema had only recently come into my life. And as I was leaving, I went to visit them, and I gave the daughter Nema a bracelet from my arm, one of my Christian bracelets with all the saints on, and Jesus. I did that because I saw her admiring them as I was talking to her. So I gave her one of those, and that day, a friend of mine who drives a taxi here, called Nelson, was coming to get me, and I went down into Uchira to tie up a few loose ends, is how I saw it, to say my goodbyes for good. I wasn't going to come back here. I decided I wasn't the man for this job. God had called me to come and do this, and I just said, I'm not the man, I'm sorry. I was being very selfish at the time. I just wasn't coping. And as I got down by the road, and it was about 10 minutes before the car came to take me to the airport, the only person down by the road was Nema. And she wasn't even doing anything. She was just stood, and she had a white blanket wrapped around her. And she stood wearing my bracelet on her wrist. And she just looked at me, and she smiled. And if she hadn't been there, if she hadn't been there when I went down into Uchira that day, I might very well have boarded that plane and not come back. But I knew God made her walk to where she was, because I knew He was saying, I need you here. I know it's difficult, but it's more difficult for these. It's more difficult for us from them than it is for you to stay here. And I saw that. I understood that. I understood why He was telling me that day. And that was a big changing point for me, where I managed to put a lot of myself to one side. Because my life is comfortable enough here. It's not nowhere near as comfortable as it could be in the West. And I do get exhausted. You can't go anywhere without someone wanting something from you. You can't go to sleep without someone waking you up for something. But I've got one of the greatest gifts in the world, is that I know that when I call on God and the angels to help me, they come. Every single time they come. And when you have that, you don't need much else. You don't need your home comforts. That's why I'm having a hard time at the moment, because Esther is dying. Nothing I can do. And there was a time where if it weren't for this family, nothing here would have happened. Not a thing. God uses people in very miraculous ways to send messages to people all over the world. Be it social media, be it a person on the street. Be it a smile on a lonely day. Or a phone call on a lonely day. He's always watching to let you know you're not alone. He's also always watching to make sure that which you are tasked to do will get done.